You're watching CW Montana. This is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and welcome to the MTN statewide news at 9 o'clock. I'm Jay Kohn. Here's what's making headlines across Montana. Gianforte versus Williams. Coming up tonight, an update on Montana's U.S. House race. Montana farmers and ranchers doing their part to get ready for wildfires. But first, the Oregon man who faced off against a bison in Yellowstone National Park last week faced a judge today in Wyoming federal court. 55-year-old Raymond Reinecke of Pendleton, Oregon faces 5 charges that include being under the influence of alcohol, endangering others, and disturbing wildlife. Today in court at Mammoth Hot Springs, Reinecke entered a not guilty plea. He was arrested last week in Glacier Park after this video that was shot last week in Yellowstone's Hayden Valley went viral on the internet. Prior to the incident with the bison in Yellowstone, Reinecke had been arrested in Grand Teton National Park for drunk and disorderly conduct. Reinecke is now set for trial August 23rd. Federal magistrate Mark Carmen today revoked Reinecke's bond from Grand Teton Park and ordered that he remain in jail until his trial. Actress Margot Kidder, better known to many as Lois Lane, was found dead at her home near Livingston back in May, but until now it was unclear exactly how she died. Now Park County officials confirmed that Kidder committed suicide with a self-inflicted drug and alcohol overdose. Richard Wood, Park County's deputy coroner, says Kidder's family is urging those who suffer from mental illnesses or addiction to seek counseling and treatment. Margot Kidder was 69. Montana's U.S. Senate race has been getting most of the attention so far this election year, but as MTN's Mike Dennison reports tonight, this fall's U.S. House race may also be one to watch, especially as the final months of the campaign play out.
A Democrat hasn't won Montana's lone congressional seat in 24 years, and GOP Congressman Greg Gianforte is certainly the favorite to win re-election to a second term this year. But national prognosticators are saying now it's not necessarily a slam dunk for Gianforte. And local observers say they see indicators that Democratic challenger Kathleen Williams could make things interesting.
Kathleen Williams is fundraising well, which suggests that donors see her as potentially a very competitive candidate.
Williams raised $500,000 in the 7 weeks ending June 30th. Since her upset primary win in June, she's been traveling the state, talking up her record as a state lawmaker who worked across the aisle to get things done.
The key for Montanans, I think, is who can they trust and who can they trust to serve them as well as possible. And that's what we're going to put forth.
She's had ads only on the internet so far, including this spot with her German wire-haired pointer.
And she won't take treats from special interests.
Gianforte, however, hasn't been sitting on his hands. He had $1.4 million in his campaign account last month and is holding meetings across the state, like his field hearing this week in Hamilton on forest policy. His campaign says Gianforte will be emphasizing his support of President Trump and the Trump agenda of tax cuts, supporting the military, and strengthening U.S. borders. Williams, however, may have someone else she wants to emulate and run alongside. Democratic U.S. Senator Jon Tester.
Certainly, if Kathleen Williams can win many of the votes that Tester will get, then she can run a competitive race, and that's, that should be her goal. I think it's helpful for her to have Tester on the ballot.
Is that a winning strategy for Williams and the Democrats in this unusual year? The verdict is coming in just 90 short days. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Mike also reminds us that Libertarian Eleanor Swanson of Billings is also competing in Montana's U.S. House race. Speaking of politics, the candidates in Montana's U.S. Senate and House races have now agreed to take part in live debates this fall right here on the Montana Television Network. MTN partnering with Yellowstone Public Radio on these upcoming debates, which will air in late September and early October. The first debate, scheduled for September 29th, will be among the candidates for U.S. House, where Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte is facing a challenge from Democrat Kathleen Williams and Libertarian Eleanor Swanson. The U.S. Senate debate will take place the following week, October 6th, with Democratic U.S. Senator Jon Tester, Republican challenger Matt Rosendale, and Libertarian Rick Breckenridge. The candidates will be fielding questions from a panel of MTN and Yellowstone Public Radio journalists. Those debates will be broadcast live statewide. A group opposing a voter initiative that would increase Montana's tobacco taxes to fund expanded Medicaid wants the state Supreme Court now to change the initiative's wording as it appears on the November ballot. MTN's Jonathan Amberian tonight reports on this legal challenge.
Initiative 185 would raise the taxes on cigarettes, snuff, and other tobacco products, and add taxes on e-cigarettes and vaping products. Some of the money raised would be used to extend Montana's Medicaid expansion program, which is scheduled to expire next year. But Montanans Against Tax Hikes, the committee formed to oppose I-185, says the language that is planned for the November ballot is misleading. The group asked the Montana Supreme Court to order changes in that ballot statement. They say the current language isn't clear about what percentage taxes are increasing. They also want the statement to note that much of the money raised will go to the state's general fund. Chuck Deneau, a spokesperson for Montanans Against Tax Hikes, said in a statement, I-185 is a massive new tax increase that permanently expands Medicaid but doesn't allocate enough money to pay for it, leaving all Montanans on the hook for tens of millions of dollars per year. Montanans Against Tax Hikes plans to run a campaign and make sure voters understand why they should reject I-185. Supporters of I-185 say the legal challenge is an attempt to create confusion around the issues.
Big Tobacco will pretty much try anything to protect their profits at the expense of Montana. They're pursuing this unnecessary legal challenge aimed at taking away health care for Montana families and our veterans. They're wasting taxpayer dollars on costly lawsuits.
Montanans Against Tax Hikes has received more than $1 million in planning, polling, legal services, and other in-kind contributions from lobbyists for Altria and Reynolds American, two major tobacco producers. I-185 has drawn support from Montana hospitals, labor groups, and groups like the American Cancer Society. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
It is the Montana Attorney General's office that is responsible for approving the ballot statements. The state now has until August 13th to respond to the challenge. Earlier today in Missoula, police arrested a suspect in a shooting that happened this past spring on the Sentinel High School campus. Sergeant Travis Welsh says 17-year-old Dylan Conat was taken into custody this afternoon. Detectives learned that Conat was in an apartment in the Missoula South Hills. When police arrived, they were able to watch Conat for several hours before they arrested him as he tried to leave the apartment building. Conat is charged with shooting two teenagers at Sentinel High School back in June that followed an altercation with the two teens. Both of the victims did survive the attack. Missoula police say it's really unknown yet if Conat may have been getting assistance during their search for him. The Lewis and Clark County coroner has identified a man whose body was found near the Gates of the Mountains recreation area north of Helena last month. David Kell, a resident of Prescott, Arizona, was found dead by two teenage boys who were hiking in the area on July 20th. At the time Kell's body was discovered, sheriff deputies say it appeared it had been there at least a week. The coroner's office did not release Kell's age or the cause or manner of death. The investigation into the circumstances of his death is ongoing. The Northern Rockies Coordination Center has raised its preparedness level for the entire Treasure State. The Federal Center covers Montana, Idaho, and North Dakota and coordinates the mobilization of wildland fire resources in those states and sometimes across the country. As of today, it's raised its preparedness level to level 3. Those levels are designed to ensure that enough resources are available. In the Northern Rockies region, these levels also are derived from a two-tiered approach. The first question is what's occurring. This can include the fire's activity and what kind of teams and resources are available. And the second question is what could occur. That measures the fire's potential and the danger to surrounding communities. Western Montana also feeling the heat. Missoula County has elevated its fire danger now to extreme, which means all fuels have dried to the point that fires will become very active very quickly. Stage 2 fire restrictions will go into effect across west central Montana beginning at 12:01 Friday morning. That includes Missoula and Ravalli counties, the Bitterroot and Lolo National Forest, the Flathead Indian Reservation, Department of Natural Resources lands, along with all FWP fishing access sites. So that means no flames, no explosives, and no off-roading with motorized vehicles. Now, the largest fire burning right now in Montana is the Garden Creek fire that's burning north of Hot Springs. It really has exploded over the last 24 hours. It grew over 1,300 acres from Tuesday and now covers an estimated 1,800 acres. That lightning-caused blaze started July 29th and is still just 5% contained. The hot, steamy weather now cause for concern for those whose livelihoods frequently fall victim to fire. Montana Ag Network meteorologist Elizabeth Copeland shows us what some Big Sandy ranchers are doing to prepare for fire season.
We watch the weather all the time.
IX Ranch Vice President Richard Roth knows fire danger
from experience.
So yes, last year's fire that was just over the Bear Paws from us on the east side there, we were well aware of it. I knew the neighbors that were involved in that. What happens is you kind of want to call and make sure that you're in the right place at the right time.
Roth has his own employees trained up on fire prevention and firefighting skills.
We go through a fire training with them. We kind of show them the basics of how to fight fire and where to be.
And how to prepare.
We always tell them to have some clothes ready and kind of be ready for a change of doing ranch work to go to fireworks.
Having workers and equipment ready to go at a moment's notice.
Most all of us have our own units. So those are all prepared. They're usually parked in garages or, full of water, ready to go at a moment's notice.
To hopefully stamp out small fires before they get out of control. But he isn't alone.
In Big Sandy, when a fire comes about, the big siren in town goes off, and I can hear it out here, just 5 miles from town. And so we're all kind of on alert, and we call our neighbors.
Who are more than willing to drop everything and protect their way of life.
Everyone just loves to help one another. It's an amazing thing in these small communities that volunteer, fires, neighbors, they all come together during these things.
In Big Sandy, Elizabeth Copeland, MTN News.
Now, of course, this time of year, lightning is one of the main concerns that spark new wildfires. But with the hot, dry conditions expected to persist through the end of this week, we'll likely also see an increase in man-caused fires. Coming up, the revenue from outdoor recreation in Montana is stout. Find out what you can do to help keep that revenue flowing. But first, Bob McGuire has a statewide weather forecast that may have you reaching for a cold one.